Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm Josh, that is Jason, that is Nathan Walz down there. This is the Redpill Project's Conversations on the Fringe, live with you every Friday night, 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. This is where we talk about, well, all that brain food. I call it brain food. Anything that makes you think, right? Well, it makes you think's actually tomorrow night, but this is kind of where we talk about those things that really do kind of drive that mind, that little hamster around its wheel. And tonight we're talking about longevity. And I even put in there immortality, because longevity treatments today, the science of longevity, which Nathan's going to talk a little bit about, things that you can do and things you can organize within your life and your health to increase longevity. But we were just talking about David Sinclair, for instance, and how his research is derived not towards necessarily longevity, but the objective of immortality. And so this is going to be a really cool conversation tonight. I'm really excited. Nathan, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Great to be back.
Awesome.
Always have a great time hanging out with you guys.
Very cool. Yeah, we keep you up a little too late, but that's okay. I think that's a one time.
Yeah, it's good once in a while, these hormetic stressors.
There you go. And I feel a little out of place. I'm the only one not wearing colored glasses here.
Well, one day, Josh, we'll get you on that bandwagon.
All right.
You'll thank us.
Yeah,
you
will.
Listen,
I don't care if people make fun of me because of these. I do not care, because I sleep like a baby. I'm telling you, I don't know. Sometimes there are people here that can catch me yawning. And so
you haven't done it in a long time.
Oh, I've been doing it all the time. You're just not catching me. So I actually don't yawn. I just kind of hold it in. But it's getting worse and worse as these shows go by, because my body's saying, hey, dude, it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I literally walk out of this room. I let my dogs out. I go downstairs and I go to bed. And I don't stay up all night thinking like I used to. I fall asleep and I wake up early.
Yeah. Hey, well, that's what happens when your circadian rhythm is intact and it's working.
So I feel kind of left out of this conversation, because this is actually something I've been thinking about lately. While I'm staying up till 2-3 in the morning working, is exactly that. One thing, I've gained a lot of weight, and I talk about this freely. I gained a lot of weight this last year, and one of the main reasons why people like myself gain weight is hormonal imbalance. And the master hormone regulator is what? The sun. It's your circadian rhythm. As Nathan has always told me, and he says, dude, just go to sleep earlier. And, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, my hormones just must be out of whack. And something said, go to sleep earlier, dumbass. And it was like in Nathan's voice. I'm like, yeah, I know. But now this next week, it's going to be after the daily dose, I get done, everything happens, and it's bedtime.
Hey, good for you, man. That's awesome. And, plus you do have an advantage. You're 2 hours behind us. Mm-hmm. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, but, my mind is like a rat race. It just goes so fast. And after a show, it's really hard to kind of just trim that down. I don't know if you guys ever had that, where it's like you're just wired. It's like I blew 2 lines of cocaine, and it's like, let's get the party started.
The past 2 times I've been out with you guys, I have been super wired. My son had hockey. We had to leave at 7 a.m. to get the hockey for him. And he doesn't have hockey, so I can chill out a little bit and don't have to be rushing in the morning.
That's cool. Yeah, it's but I'll tell you, one thing I've been doing, and I'm not doing this as a test, but I decided since I'm in this situation right now, right, where I gained a lot more weight this last year, obviously I know my sleep is out of whack, my diet's out of whack. I started comparing feelings of how I remember feeling last year in comparison to how I feel now. And I'm telling you, it's like I'm walking around with bags of lead on myself, and they seep down into your joints. I don't know if you ever felt that, your joints are completely sore and just you just feel like shit. Seriously, complete total shit all the time. So much so that it impedes progress of not feeling like shit. You feel like so much shit, you don't want to do things that are going to make you feel better. Does that make sense?
100%.
Well, I've been there myself. Oh, what's that, Jason?
To me, it does, because that's where I'm at. Or that's where I was at. And so for you guys that don't know, I have been working with Nathan in his optimal health program. How's it coming? 18 pounds. I think that's a big deal. Yeah, that is. 18 pounds I've lost. These have changed my sleep patterns. And I want to say that I'm overall a more happy person. I'm in better moods. So for me, it's life-changing. And what I really like about the program is that it's 90 days. And so if you guys know about habits, it takes I think it's like 32 to 186 days to change a habit. And so I have a quit date. I'm going to tell everybody it's in April. I have a quit date to quit smoking.
Yeah.
I would have to say that quitting smoking, smoking has been that thing, Josh, that makes me not want to be healthier.
Yeah.
It makes you not want to, right? Because you know, if you exert yourself, you're going to be winded, and who wants to be winded? And when you're heavy and then you're winded, you feel like you're going to have a heart attack. So why do that shit, right?
Yeah. No, it's crazy because I quit on Jeff's birthday a few years back. And then Jeff just quit about 6 months ago. And it was incredibly, you asking me, the first 3 months was like grinding teeth. Even 4 months later, he's like, this sucks, but it's not that bad. And then it's like, dude, I quit. Well, it just, there was a shift. And it was like, dude, I'm no longer dependent upon this thing anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be unless I choose. And that's like liberation, I think. And so
that's huge.
I'm happy for you, Jay, that you're doing that because you come to this point of liberation. You truly do. But, you know, one thing you have to keep in check, or for me it was compensation. Is compensation of addictions and habits. Is when I quit smoking, I started eating a lot of sweets. I started doing this, and I gained a little bit of weight, and then I said, oh, you know what? I need to get a good, healthy compensation.
Yeah, you need a healthy replacement, exactly.
Yep. And that's when I started working out all the time. I got back into really good shape. Everything was great, and then COVID.
Yeah. Hey, well, Josh, I'll just comment real quick on what you said. So people either adapt to feeling like crap or they get to a point where they can't take it anymore and they make some serious changes in their life.
Right. I'm at that one point right now where I just can't take it anymore. It's like, you know.
And that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
I have like a lot of friends that I've just kind of grown up with through the corporate world. And I've seen them adapt to feeling like crap and looking like crap too. And they're just like, they get to a point where they're like, this is just the way it is. This is just who I am. It's like, no, it's not. That's not the case at all. That's what your doctor might tell you. But if you're willing to make some changes and do things differently, then you can 100% turn things around. I had a client that came to me, he was 71 or 72 when we were working together, and he completely turned things around. So it's never too late.
And I think some of the factor is that people get into a state of psycho-emotional compensation where they have certain imbalances within their emotional life and they compensate with that, the pain from that, directly into their health. And so they do bad things in health choices to basically punish themselves for these emotional scars or these emotional damages they have within their life that they don't want to deal with.
Yeah, well, so in the beginning, you kind of added on, I wanted to talk about 5 keys for longevity. You added on immortality,
right?
Which I don't believe, our physical body can achieve immortality, but our soul has immortality, and we're here for a lesson. And when we don't learn that lesson, we repeat those patterns over and over.
Right.
And, for people that are like, oh, why does this always happen to me? Because it's a lesson. This is a lesson from the universe.
That's right. The 7-year
Until you figure this out, it's going to keep on happening to you.
Every 7 years, that lesson repeats over and over again until you change the cycle. And I don't know why it's every 7 years. Don't ask me why it's every 7 years. But there's something about every 7 years. By the way, every 7 years, every cell of your body changes out, right? Is the complete cycle of the cellular exchange process where all the cells in your body change out every 7 years. Your skin cells do it every 3 months or so, but after every 7 years, you're a new person.
If you're healthy. If not, they just get old and senescent and don't work anymore.
So here's the thing. I want to live a long time. I don't know if other people are like me, but I can't perceive. I'm okay with death, but I can't perceive my end date, my expiration date. I look at it in the sense I'm going to live forever. I want to live forever. I'd love to live for like 800, 900 years and be like, that's so cool. And I perceive that in my mind. Will that happen? I don't know. But Nathan, give me the tips on how to do it. What should I be doing?
Yeah. Josh, here's a caveat. I want to live a long time too, but I want to remain healthy into old age.
That's right.
I've had family members that have lived to an old age, but they're on a shitload of medications. Yeah. They are barely coherent, and
so the Joe Biden.
I never want to get to a point where I'm living like that. So I want to throw that in there.
What am I doing here? Where are we? Where are we? I'm just saying things. Joe
Biden. If I can't take a crap by myself, then it's time for me to check out.
It's interesting you said that. My wife, who's Asian, she said, when I'm unable to care for myself, please take care of me. And she didn't mean by take care of her in the sense of help her take care of herself. She said, take care of me. Right? And she goes, I just don't want to live at that point. And because she basically said, it's like, at that point, you're no longer living.
I don't know.
Right? Think about it. You're no longer living.
It's easy to say that now, but when you're holding on to your strings, will you say that? Right?
Well, think about this. We got a 94-year-old grandfather?
I think 93 maybe.
93, 94-year-old grandfather, okay? Besides, the odds and ends, cooking and cleaning and stuff like that, this guy still gets on ladders to clean out the gutters. He still tries to mow his lawn. He still tries to do the same things that he's done for the last 70, 80 years, right? I mean, he's a healthy, probably the healthiest, but he's a healthy 94-year-old. He's gluten. He has a celiac disease. And I remember at our grandma's wake, he was happy, cheerful, but he was eating everything in sight. And my aunt was like, Dad, you can't eat that. And he looked at her like, I'm 93 years old. Do you think I give a shit about what I eat?
Yeah, good for him.
If I'm going to have gas, I'm going to have gas. I'm going to enjoy the cookies, right? But it's a dude who knows about living life. And I remember one of the most important lessons this guy ever taught me. And it was, we're back in his shop, Jay. You remember his shop?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, I was probably my son's age, 9 years old. And I didn't know shit from shit. And he says, come over here. I'm like, yeah. And he had an anvil, big old anvil. And he goes, can you pick that up over your head? And I go up there and I'm like, and I can't even lift the damn thing. And he goes, you need to get some meat on those bones and replace that fat. You ain't a man until you can lift that thing over your head.
Nice.
That's just his, that's who he was. At me, I took it like offense, like, what the hell, right? That's mean. But looking back on it, well, it was. I mean, today that's bullying. You hurt my feelings, right?
Yeah.
But in actuality, he was trying to teach me a very important lesson. Is that, look, dude, you need to be strong. At 9 years old, I was lifting anvils over my head, and you can't even freaking budge the damn thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he was warning me. He's telling me, look, you want to live to be 93 and healthy and happy and content with life, successful and fulfilled, lift fucking anvils over your head. And what that means is do the challenges that life presents in front of you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do hard things. Definitely. As long as you're talking about grandparents, so Lindsay, my significant other, her grandmother, who I call Nanny, she's 93 or 94 herself. And she's got this cottage up in the Finger Lakes. And we went there. We go there every year, but this was like a year or so ago. And she has this boat. It looks kind of like a canoe, but it has like oars, like a rowboat on it. She has some name for it, like a gondola or something. And she's like, Nathan, can you help me out with this boat? I thought she wanted me to go for a ride with her and take her for a ride. I'm like, okay, tell me what to do. She's like, just hold the boat. She gets in. She's like, I got it from here. So I'm standing on the dock watching her just go out. She literally went around the bend. I couldn't even see her anymore.
Cranking away.
All by herself.
Yep. Muscle memory.
She does a treadmill. She still lives by herself. Her husband's passed away. Completely independent.
Yep.
But she's always active. She has a great attitude, very positive. And if before I go into to the stuff I'm going to talk about, observe people like your grandfather, like Nanny, people that have gotten to an old age and they've maintained, their faculties and can be independent and do all this stuff, and just get to know them and just understand how they live their life. There's so many amazing lessons in people that have made it that far today.
So when I was in the Navy, I was in Washington, D.C. I was stationed there. And on Veterans Day 2009, I think it was, we went to, I forgot the name of the place, but there was like a Navy ship in the port there on the Potomac. And we invited everybody from the VA, Army, Marines, and there was injured Iraqi and Afghani soldiers, but there's also World War II veterans there. And each of us got assigned to a different veteran. And I got assigned to this little old, like 5'3", 97-year-old man, right? And he's got a cup of coffee, and he's like this, drinking his coffee. And I'm like, man, I don't know that dude should be drinking coffee. And I go, hey, I'm like, hey, introduce myself. And I'm like, you okay drinking that coffee? He looks at me and goes, you shitting me? I was drinking coffee before you were a wet dream in your daddy's, right? And I'm like, okay, cool, right? And I sit down. This guy's famous. He was on the Discovery Channel for almost 20 years. The documentaries on World War II and the battles of Midway. He was at the Battle of Midway. He was on a destroyer that got torpedoed, jumped off the destroyer, got picked up by a cruiser, was on the cruiser for 2 days. The cruiser got torpedoed. He survived that, jumped off that, and then was on the Midway the day that the Japanese admiral signed the declaration. You can even see him in the picture. And he lived through this. He said that kamikaze pilots are coming down and trying to shoot them when they're in the water. And the way they survived is basically you're taking pieces of the boats and hiding under them until they got picked up by other boats. But this dude was a living legend. And I said, what's the secret to longevity? What's the secret to life? And he goes, to have a secret. Think about that. I said, what's the secret to longevity? He goes, it doesn't matter what it is. Have a secret. Have a purpose. Because if you ask Nanny, if you ask Grandpa Andy, they're all going to tell you different things. Like, I roll 1 Cuban a day, and it's like, it's just relaxed, and I smoke it, and it smells beautiful, and I drink that with my scotch or my rum, right? Or 1 cigarette a day, right?
Yeah, no. You know what Grandpa used to do, actually, was...
What's that?
He used to take his toast and dip it in his coffee, right? That's the secret.
But it's just toast in his coffee. Belief.
Yeah.
But Nathan's going to tell us the real shit on how to get there, to have a secret, to tell somebody I had a secret, and this is what it was. And my secret was Nathan Walz.
Well, Josh, you nailed it with belief. Belief is such a huge part. Mm-hmm. Just believing you can do whatever that is.
Yep, belief. Belief in yourself, firstly.
But so from a more of a physical level, we're going to talk about what the keys are for longevity. I'm not going to promise immortality, but if you want to live a long, healthy life, if you want to be able to be independent when you're an old person and hang out with your grandkids and still have fun and feel good about your life, you want to focus on these 5 things.
Let's do it.
And before I talk about this, the kind of like the mainstream in health and wellness, it's all diet and exercise. And, if you're a little more advanced, supplements. And we were talking about David Sinclair before. He's all about NAD positive, which is important. And if you have thousands of dollars, you can go and get IV NAD positive IVs.
Dave Osprey.
It's about 4 hours in injection, so it takes a lot of time. But if you're smart, you can make your own if you know what to do. Mm-hmm. One of the keys for making NAD positive is your circadian rhythm needs to be working.
Oh, well, shit.
Watching the sunrise, it increases production of something called nocturnum, which plays a role in production of NAD positive.
Now, does that produce an endorphin response when that's produced in the bodily system? Because
not that I'm aware of.
When I watch the sunrise, in the last...
when you watch the sunrise, I thought you meant from production of NAD positive.
Well, no.
So
NAD positive.
When you watch the sunrise, that sets your circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. How you build up your endorphins. So you have a natural opioid in your body, beta endorphins. There's actually a research paper. It shows you are meant to be addicted to the sun. So about an hour and a half after sunrise. So if you just target getting sun between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., watch the sunrise. Get some sun from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Those are kind of like the golden 2 hours, because you have the perfect mix of red, blue, infrared, and UVA light. So UVA light is a key component for beta endorphins. It actually makes this thing called POMC, POMC, which is pro-opiomelanocortin hormone, whatever. That's a precursor for beta endorphins, for endocannabinoids. Why do you think so many people love their weed and CBD is taking off? Because people aren't making their own endocannabinoids, so they're taking an exogenous source. Okay, so you are addicted to get sun. What's really funny is in this same research paper, at the end, it's saying how we have this mechanism to make us addicted to the sun, but UV light is carcinogenic.
Right.
It's like, don't you think there would be a reason that nature would design us so we're addicted to the sun? But these researchers are, anyway.
Well, what? You know, one of the reasons on that, I want to touch on that, is the sun is carcinogenic, or UV light is carcinogenic to an unhealthy body that is in an unbalanced state. I think that's what we really need to clarify, is that a healthy body, a person who is like Nathan, optimized to a certain degree. I don't think if you had that as a test case for somebody who's eating McDonald's or smoking and drinking and drugging and who lives a poor healthy lifestyle, there's a difference there, and you can have a higher cancer rate.
Huge difference. Huge difference. Well, here's the thing: in the research papers where they say that UV light is carcinogenic, lots of those papers study UV light in isolation. So they're studying it from a light bulb versus UV light from the sun, which is completely different.
Correct.
Because when you get it from the sun, at the most, the sun is like 2, maybe 3% UV light. Tops. So anytime you get UV light, it's balanced with red light, which is anti-inflammatory. So you get blue light from the sun, that causes inflammation. You get UV light from the sun, that causes inflammation, but it's balanced with red light, that's anti-inflammatory.
Interesting.
All right. So let's get started. So number 1 of the 5 is mitochondrial health.
Gotcha.
I did a whole webinar for the Redpill channel on this. I did like an hour long on the mitochondria. So I'm not going to talk about it for an hour today, but the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. That's how you make your energy. You get your mitochondrial genome. So your body has 3 genomes. We're going to talk about those. You got the DNA. So 97%, 98% of NIH funding looks at the DNA, that genome, the human genome. But you have a mitochondrial genome. So your DNA you get from mom and dad. Your mitochondrial genome you get from your mom. So if you want an idea of kind of your starting point with your mitochondrial health, look at the health of your mother and your mother's mother. If they're doing well, you had a great starting point. If they're not, just means you have some more work to do, but you can turn things around. So one of the things that drives aging is heteroplasmy. Heteroplasmy means your mitochondria, as you age, they mutate. And when they mutate, they don't make energy anymore. But here's the thing. You can have up to 70% mutated mitochondria in your cell and still maintain cell function.
Gotcha. And that's probably
pretty amazing, right?
That's probably the state most people live in.
Well, that kind of explains why somebody looks very healthy, then all of a sudden they have a heart attack.
Right.
Because your mitochondria have zip codes. So your brain might be working great. The mitochondria in your brain might be highly functional. But the mitochondria in your heart, they might be like around that 50, 60%, right below that threshold. You run a marathon, it kind of pushes it over the edge, heart failure. That's just one scenario. So with the mitochondria, there's this thing called mitochondrial biogenesis. That means you can grow new mitochondria. There's mitophagy. That means you can repair damaged mitochondria.
Similar to autophagy.
Autophagy is on the cellular level.
Right.
So within the cell, you have these organelles, you have all these different things,
Yep.
mitochondria being one of them. So yeah, mitophagy is just kind of a lower level.
And what that does is that goes up and basically discards damaged, old, and used and abused mitochondria and replenishes them with newer ones.
Yeah, so when your mitochondria make energy, there's metabolic waste. When you're young, your cells are very efficient, this is actually number 3. Number 2 is cellular health or autophagy. So when we're young and healthy, our cells are very good at staying clean, taking out the trash. Mm-hmm. But as we age, they become less efficient. They're not so good at taking out the trash, and they build up all this metabolic waste. And it just becomes kind of a big trash heap in the cell. Then it's not efficient. But yeah, so part of autophagy is taking out that trash. The other part is you might have some parts in the cell. Maybe 80% of the cell is great, but 20% of the parts are defective. It's just getting rid of the defective and making new parts.
So let me just kind of dig in a little bit. So let's go back to the cell, and you have all that junk building up in there. Right?
Yeah.
We become less effective at removing that junk. Now, there's obviously systems in the body that are made exactly for that. There's garbage disposals, if you want to talk about the excretionary systems, right? You have the lymphatic system. You have the lysosome system we just talked about. These are autophagy, mitophagy, all these things. What happens when that stuff builds up in your system?
The cell becomes senescent, which is basically, it's like a zombie cell. So the cell is still alive, but it's not doing anything. And as it comes in contact with other cells, remember like the zombie show? What was that show? Like I forget what it was called. The Walking Dead. Yeah. Zombie like scratches you or bites you or whatever, turns you into a zombie. These senescent cells, when they come in contact with other cells, they basically turn them into senescent cells.
Now that kind of sounds a lot like a disease I know called cancer and metastasization, right? So basically as a cancer metastasizes, it spreads that poison, that toxicity to other cells, which becomes basically rampant and spreads throughout very, very rapidly. So is that very similar in a sense?
100%. Cancer is a mitochondrial disease. Heart disease is a mitochondrial disease.
Wow,
neurodegeneration is a mitochondrial disease. Autoimmunity, mitochondrial disease. Diabetes, obesity. Lung issues. Kidney disease. It's all mitochondrial disease.
Interesting. Well, shit, I think I got a mitochondrial problem then.
Yeah. If you can't lose weight.
Yeah.
I mean, hormones play a role in that. But when you can't lose weight, that's a metabolic issue.
Correct.
What is metabolism? Converting food to energy. When you can't convert food to energy, your body stores it as energy. What's stored energy? Fat.
White and brown. Adipose.
White and brown.
Yep.
So autophagy. When do you do autophagy?
When you're fasting, after about 18 hours for a male of a fast, about 16 hours of a fast for a female.
Yeah, okay. But if you're not fasting, when do you do it?
Never.
When you sleep.
Oh, when you sleep. Well, that's saying that you're in a fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're in a fasted state. But isn't there a certain, so from what I've read or from what I've seen is that there's a certain biomarker that occurs. And it's usually when you're in a fasted state for 16 hours that initiates autophagy to occur. Now,
so fasting amplifies autophagy, but your body's meant to do autophagy
when you sleep.
Take out the trash every single night when you sleep.
Right.
And you're meant to be sleeping when it's dark out. So if you do shift work, if you run a very popular podcast and you're up 5 nights a week doing that, guess what? Your body's missing out on autophagy.
Hey guys, we're going to have to start doing this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and you're prematurely aging yourself. I know you don't like to hear this, but I'm always going to tell you the truth.
It's fine. I need to be told the truth every once in a while. Yeah, I'd rather be prematurely doing that than something else, right? No, I'm joking. It's a joke.
Yeah. So there are different things that you can do to amplify autophagy. But quality sleep needs to be number one. There's no negotiating quality sleep.
Good. Gotcha.
Fasting amplifies it. There are different plant compounds you can take that amplify it. Things like fisetin, apigenin, resveratrol. Mm-hmm. taro still bean, fish oil when you're fasted. That amplifies the effects of fasting.
Now, one thing that I've been a faster for a long time, for at least the last 3.5-4 years. I know how to fast really well. I can do dry fast. I can do water fast. I can do. But one thing that I've always had a question with, because I do a lot of coffee fast, so I drink a lot of coffee because coffee doesn't produce a metabolic reaction within your system, where it's so small and minute that it's not counted as a metabolic function. But is taking supplements when you're fasting. Now, there's a metabolic reaction that happens that actually knocks you out of a fast. Is that true when you're fasting and taking supplements like you're talking about now? Or is it just so negligent it doesn't even matter?
Yeah, for the most part, negligible. The supplements I'm taking, they're pretty low dose for the most part.
Okay.
But some supplements, it depends. I mean, if you take enough supplements, it can knock you out of your fast. But the thing with fasting is it's a hormetic stressor. Right. So you do want to be kind of minimizing the inputs because you want to stress your body for a short period of time as much as possible. But there are some compounds that it makes sense to take because you're knocking out these senescent cells. You're amplifying the effects of autophagy. And you just mentioned a dry fast. Dry fast, which I recently just learned, I just recently did my second dry fast. The first one was only 36 hours, but that gets you into extended autophagy.
Interesting.
So something that happens when you age is like every night when you sleep, you're taking out the trash, but there's some trash that's so big, you can't take it out. Your cell can't take it out. It has to break it down.
Right.
So by doing, this might sound a little bit radical, but by doing a 3-day or longer dry fast on the third day, you go into something called extended autophagy, where you activate these pathways that basically, kind of like a jackhammer, they go in and they break down these bigger proteins in the cell. I mean, I'm holding my hands out like this, but all this stuff's on a microscopic level. It's inside our cells, but it's just too big for the cell to kind of excrete on its own, but it's able to break down these bigger fragments of proteins, and you can essentially completely rejuvenate your body because you also get a massive release of stem cells as well.
Because that makes sense from a evolutionary standpoint, is that when you would hit into so let's say that 100,000 years ago, when you hit that extended fast, that's telling the body is, hey, I'm on a long hunt. I need energy. I'm trying to find food. The body goes, okay, well, I'm going to eat all the shit that's in the way and optimize all the cells that are working. So it gets rid of everything that's not optimized, gets rid of all the junk, clears all that away, and then produces new healthy stuff in the process to keep you functioning so you can get that food. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, because something else that happens with fasting. So number 3 is activation of longevity genes. So there are different things that you can do that activate genes. So I said before, you have 3 genomes. I talked about the first 2. Talked about DNA and the mitochondrial genome.
I know
the third genome.
I know what it is.
Is the microbiome genome.
Yeah, I was right.
Yeah. So all these genomes talk to each other and they influence each other. So I said before, you get your DNA from mom and dad, mitochondria from mom. Your microbiome is changing throughout your life. Mm-hmm. You can influence that. You can change it.
Interesting.
And when you do the right things, you can activate different genes that keep you young. But when you fast, when you do cold exposure, when you do some kind of intense exercise, that activates AMPK.
Right.
Which modulates your body's energy production. So, like when you were saying before, you have no food, what happens is the body, it ramps up energy production to enable it to get more food.
And so AMPK, is that like a hyped up ATP?
Yeah, it has a very close relationship with ATP.
Okay.
And I forget what AMPK stands for at the moment, but when you activate AMPK, that activates sirtuins,
correct,
which actually have some of the biggest role in anti-aging and life extension. So all three of those things that I mentioned, fasting, cold exposure, and intense exercise, they all increase AMPK. But when you do the three of them, they have a synergistic effect when you do them together.
Activated protein kinase. That's all I'm seeing it. AMP activated protein kinase is AMPK.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically it's like an adrenaline shot when you're in danger. That's what it's doing for your metabolism.
Yeah, not quite adrenaline.
Well, it's a metaphor, right? Or an analogy is when I need that energy, right? My adrenal glands go boop, pop that adrenaline in there. I have it. I can fight and flight, all these things. And it's the same thing is when I go into survival mode metabolically, AMPK pathway is initiated, and that allows certain functionality within my body to sustain itself, clean itself out, optimize, so I can get that food.
Yeah, but I'm sure we've all had an adrenaline hit.
Right.
You know, something really scary happens in our life, or usually something scary that happens. That's a very visceral feeling.
Now, I don't know if I told you about this, but when I fast, I do fast kind of like I would fast every day. I do an 18-hour fast every day. Then I'd eat small meals, and you can drop a lot of weight really fast like that. It's not sustainable for the long term. But one thing that happens to me when I do long, prolonged fasting is I get these warm flushes, kind of like where you get really blush everywhere. You get this like warm flush that comes over your whole body, right? And then also I get my heart. I'll just be sitting there, and all of a sudden, and then I'll go back down, go to normal, right? It's not like that fast, but you'll have like where your bifurcation. You know how you have the bifurcation silencing in your head, where your mind actually produces an antitone of the bifurcation beat of your heart. So this is why you don't hear your heartbeat while you're actually in just walking around normal, is because your brain's actually creating an anti-bifurcation tone.
Oh, really?
That cancels out.
I had not heard that, but very interesting.
But if you go into deep states of meditation, that goes away, and that's why you can hear your heartbeat. If you go underwater, you can hear your heartbeat, those types of things. That should be natural, but we actually create a tone that cancels that out. But so what I get is like I'll go.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I'll go into a fast, and all of a sudden, I'll boom, 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 boom. I'm really conscious of my heart rate. It's increased just a little bit. Yeah. Just a little bit. But it's like it's strong. I mean, that's all you can, only way to explain it is it's strong, and you know it's there, and you know it's happening, but it's like, it happens when I fast. So the question is we all have different blood types. We all have different genealogical types, hereditary history. We all have different DNA, kind of what you're just talking about. You have your paternal or maternal DNA, your mitochondrial DNA. You have your regular DNA from your mother and your father. Then you have your gut biome, your microbiome DNA. And so the question is with that whole play of things is there certain things that are good for certain people and certain things that are good for other people and certain things that are good for other people? Or is there just like, what should I be like? What should I be eating? I read that book, What to Eat for Your Blood Type, right?
Yeah, well...
And I started going through it, and I'm like, I don't like that, and I don't like that, and that gives me heartburn. So this makes a lot of sense, but then I start eating that diet, and it's just like, I feel like shit. So I don't know. That's what I'm trying to ask is like...
Yeah, so it really depends on where you live. So if you want to make it super simple, eat foods that are local and in season. Mm-hmm. For most of your diet. That's not realistic to do 100% of your time in this day and age. Mm-hmm. But just kind of think, okay, if I lived here, what would my ancestors have eaten 200 years ago before we had stores?
Right.
You would be eating what people were growing in the summer, and in the winter, what people could kill or catch. Well, kill. If you catch a fish, you kill it. But, either you shoot an animal or you catch a fish. And maybe stored some stuff, mm-hmm. but not a whole lot. So that's that's a majority of what you should be eating. But, you know, you bring up a really interesting question. The darker your skin, the closer you want to be living to the equator, the more sun you need. So I think we may have talked about this on a past episode, but there is a large Somali population in Minnesota. In Somalia, autism is unheard of. And yet the same population is getting autism living in Minnesota.
Interesting.
So is it because they changed their diet, or is it because they're very, very far away from the equator now? And the darker your skin, the more sun you need. And they're just not getting enough sun to keep them optimal.
It could be
of course, there's other factors, but let's talk about the biggest factor first.
Gut biome's a big factor there, right? But your gut, so here's the interesting thing, is your gut microbiome is directly related to the sunlight and the amount of sunlight that you need.
100%. There's a guy, Jeffrey Leach, who went to Africa. He did a bunch of research. He was basically right on the equator. Mm-hmm. Their water was polluted. Dead animals in the water. Yaks taking craps in the water that they drank. And yet, for the most part, most of them had a pretty healthy microbiome. He was studying their stool. There were some people, I forget the country in Africa that he was doing this research in, but some of the people worked in stores and they had access to Western food. Things like soda, chips, you know, typical
sugar.
Western junk. Sugar.
Yeah, sugar.
And guess what? All of them had pretty similar microbiomes. Because it goes back to what you said. It was their sun exposure. They don't wear a whole lot of clothes there. They don't wear sunscreen either. And yet they don't have skin cancer.
Right. And so I think that's a very interesting factor right there, is that you were talking about the higher content of autism in the Somali population in Minnesota, which is traditionally colder, less sun, far away from the equator. But then you also have the traditional American diet. So you have the transition of the gut microbiome towards a northern type of genetic outlay. Then you have the reduced sunlight. So this microbiome that they naturally have is not getting the amount of energy production that it would normally need. And I believe it's blue light that the microbiome actually absorbs, right?
Yeah, blue light doesn't penetrate
red light.
Red light.
And so they're not getting the red light they need in their microbiome. And we've seen in the past how autism was, in a sense, we've kind of been over this before, but there was portions of where a doctor out there did fecal matter transplants in autistic kids to see if it would change their microbiome, and he had massive success in it in treating autistic kids.
Yeah.
And so we know that this plays a factor, at least in alleviating some of the symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, Joshua, to go back to something you said, their diet could be relatively similar in Minnesota. I lived in the DC metro area for 20 years. Mm-hmm. They have populations from all over the world there.
Yep.
There is like
ethnic restaurants.
There was this town, Annandale, and there was a section of Annandale. It was called Little Korea.
Yep.
Because it's just full streets. It's all like Korean businesses. So my point is, they have these areas all over Northern Virginia and Maryland. No matter what country you come from, you can get your traditional foods.
Yep.
And I dated different women that were from different countries, and got to go to their houses and eat dinner. And their parents were cooking these traditional foods. And from living in DC, my friends were very international, and a lot of them grew up eating their traditional diets.
Right.
So diet. I'm sure some Somalis are eating McDonald's, but I'm sure a lot of them are eating their traditional foods as well. So diet's not even really a role for the most part.
Interesting.
But here's something else though. But if you grow up in Africa, the diet that you would eat would be very different, because what's available by the equator is going to be very different than what's available in the northern latitude, where you have very short growing seasons.
But it's also more wholesome, organic. It's naturally and geographically located. And that's another important factor, is one of the things with the paleo type diet is they tell you to eat local. Never eat, you always say this, never eat out of season, always eat in season fruits and vegetables, always, so more meats in the winter, these types of things. And the reason is, and this is very important, and this is maybe one of the reasons as well why we like honey. Obviously, honey is built out of the pollen of the plants in the local area, and this actually reduces the amount of allergies that a person would get if a person is susceptible for this. But is the sun. Is all these things that we're talking about, the foods, the vegetables, the plants, the honeybees, the pollen, all of this derived from the sun exposure at that point in time throughout that whole entire year. And that's the same sun exposure that you're getting. So it's kind of like this matching, right? Where if you go out and you get something that was grown organically in a building with artificial lights, this is going to be detrimental to your health.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up because that takes us back to number one, mitochondrial health. Your mitochondria, they take electrons and protons to make ATP. Mm-hmm. They get those from your food.
Krebs cycle.
Yeah. So your food, it's broken down. Your mitochondria can process fats and glucose, but at the end of the day, they're extracting the electrons from the fat or the glucose. But those electrons have an electric signature on them. They have energy and information. So your mitochondria, essentially, that's another way that they get a kind of sense of the season and of the time. So when you're eating food that's been processed or has been grown under artificial light or has been grown on the other side of the world, that's a mismatch for your mitochondria.
There it is. So let me ask you this. Your mitochondria most likely become adaptive to your geographic area after a certain amount of time. Therefore, your diet should be conducive with your mitochondrial geographic adaptation. And that would have everything to do with the sun.
Yeah, well, I mean, your mitochondria, they can adapt in an instant.
Right.
Because they're constantly reading your environment. So if I just walk down my house, my mitochondria are having to adapt because I'm walking by a lamp. I'm walking by, there's a power line in the wall.
Right.
I'm walking by an appliance that's putting off electromagnetic fields that my mitochondria can't interpret. So they're constantly adapting every single second.
Okay.
Every femtosecond.
Right. So, but what I'm trying to say is the amount of sun exposure traditionally that a geographic area gets, this is kind of where your circadian rhythms lay. This is where your metabolic rhythms lay. This is kind of where your optimization of your mitochondria lay. This is all set primarily, everything that you're saying, by the sun.
Yeah, you got to be connected with nature.
Wow. That is freaking mind-blowing. That how important the sun is. Now, this is funny because if you know breatharians and the people who live off the sun, they claim they live off the sun and stuff like this. It makes a lot more sense now when you start to think about it in this perspective.
Well, you're meant to get 2/3 of your electrons and your energy from the sun and earth. The earth has an electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're the only animal that's not connected to the earth because we wear rubber shoes.
Right.
But all other animals walk on the earth. Huh. They absorb electrons from the earth. There's a lot of research on this. If you have inflammation, that means you need more electrons.
Yep, go out and
so
put your feet in the
let's
dirt.
say like my shoulder's like a little tight right now, just from working out and standing too much today on my desk. Mm-hmm. I need to go and like lay on the earth, and then that'll actually reduce the inflammation that I'm dealing with right now.
And you ever notice how it feels so good?
It does.
It really does.
Till it beeps.
Yeah, I mean, people intuitively know. Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. What were you saying?
Until like a bee stings you or an ant bites you, and then you're like, right?
Yeah.
But, have you ever seen the movie Avatar? Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes.
You've seen it, Josh, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about what you're saying there, and then think about the people that lived on that planet that we raided, and how connected they were to that planet and to all the other animals. It makes you think, what do people know on this planet that they're not telling everybody else?
Yeah, that's an awesome point. And if you think about people coming over from Europe and what they did to the Indians, couple hundred years ago or however long ago it was,
Yeah.
you know, who also had a very deep connection to the earth and to the animals. And if you go further back than the Indians, you know, I'm sure the Indians, they probably did that to somebody else too.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Probably,
yeah, I think if we go far enough back, you know, people were much more, not just more connected with the earth, but more connected with animals and probably other beings too that, you know, are no longer on this realm. I don't know.
Interesting. So
was it
Go ahead, Jay. You're fine.
was it you, Nathan, that we were talking on Wednesday, where we were talking about the Native Americans here when European cultures came here? They systematically destroyed their food sources to get them more to European foods. Was that you?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was. I think
Josh?
that was Ben Stewart who we were talking that conversation with.
So yeah, so you know, we not only did we harvest all the buffalo for their skin.
That was a
but
TikTok.
Was it a
That
TikTok?
was a TikTok. But basically, what we did is we decimated their food supply. So one of the ways that we made Native Americans get rid of their old cultural traditions and their old diets, and basically get them out of sync with nature, is the first thing that we did is we went in there and killed all the buffalo.
Yep.
Killed all the buffalo so they could no longer herd buffalo. That was their primary source of protein and meat. And that basically made them dependent upon us. And once we had them dependent upon us, it was very easy to control them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty crazy right there. Got a question here. So Reggie P56 says, can you have him talk about UVA and UVB and sunscreen and how it affects vitamin D?
Yeah. So UVA. So let's go back before UVA. So in the morning when you watch the sunrise, that sets your circadian rhythm. There's no UV light at sunrise, but that red light from the sun, that actually creates an SPF of 15 in your body.
Okay.
So we were talking before how UV from the sun can cause cancer. So let's say you're a white guy or a white girl or white person, and you live in the north, and in the winter you go down to Mexico or Dominican Republic, and you party all night, you sleep in, you go out till noon and just, you know, get super burned. That can set you up for skin cancer. But there's a right way to get sun exposure. You want to get first exposed to the sun at the sunrise. That red light, that actually creates melatonin in your cells, which is anti-cancer, is very protective. That prepares your skin for UVA light. UVA light, that creates, we talked about beta endorphins, endocannabinoids, but it also creates melanin. It tells your body to make melanin, which is natural protection against UV light. Then a little bit later in the day, we get UVB. UVB is what your body uses to make vitamin D. That sun exposure, that also activates about 1,000 different genes in your body that make different immune compounds to keep your immune system healthy. So let me ask you, is vitamin D made from the sun the same as taking a supplement?
No, absolutely
not even close.
Not even close, yeah.
Not even close. So UVA has its benefits. UVA also makes T3, which is a very important thyroid hormone.
Interesting.
Do we have any thyroid issues today?
That's the majority of that's the master hormone regulator. So most of the hormonal imbalance comes from people having hyperthyroidism and not even knowing it, or what is that other adrenal fatigue? So adrenal fatigue and hyperthyroidism.
Oh, well, guess what causes adrenal fatigue?
Hyperthyroidism or thyroid deficiencies.
Blue light at night.
There you go.
Not wearing your blue blockers at night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sets you up for adrenal fatigue.
Do they have contacts? I'm serious.
No.
It's a serious question.
No.
Man.
No.
Well, it's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. You don't want to wear contacts. So if you are wearing contacts, you want to go to glasses, because when you're outside, you want your eyes exposed to the sun.
Right.
Contacts block UV light. And I've never worn contacts, but I know enough to know it's not easy just to pop them out and pop them back in.
Right.
The glasses, when you're outside, you can just kind of lift them up over your head. So when you're outside, you want as much sun exposure healthily, so you're not burning, as you can. When you're inside, you want to be protected, especially at night. But does that fully answer the UVA, UVB question?
It does.
I
And I think the other part of that was about lotion.
Lotion, yeah. Well, I personally do not. I haven't worn sunscreen in years.
Okay.
Before I knew better, I burned quite easily, and I used to slather on a lot of sunscreen, and I would still burn. But I'd be out all day drinking in the sun and doing other stupid stuff. But now I can go down to Mexico. I can go to Dominican Republic, and usually I'll do tanning a little bit before I go. But I can hang out all day. I don't really burn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe by the third or fourth day, I'll start to burn, and I'll wear a hat. I'll spend more time under an umbrella, and I might put a little sunscreen on my face. But if you can get away without sunscreen, you're best to avoid it because it's full of chemicals. Anything you put on your skin goes in your blood. A lot of the chemicals in sunscreen are carcinogenic.
Right.
There's a lot of articles out there about it. There are natural sunscreens, more like zinc-based sunscreens. So if you did have to wear one, then wear that. But ideally, let's say you're going to go on a fishing trip, bring a hat, bring clothes you can cover up with. And the parts you can't cover up with clothes, you can do some sunscreen. Or if it's a once in a while thing, not a big deal. But most people that use sunscreen, they're using it quite frequently.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this is interesting because one of the things that I've kind of went away from using is all these lotions and everything that just you paste all over yourself, deodorants. Now,
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
My biggest problem is I learned, well, not my biggest problem. One of the things that I learned is that people in Islamic religion, do not use deodorant. And it's actually against their religion to use it. And one of the reasons is because they believe, and I do too, is that firstly, this is one of your major lymphatic systems in your body. This is an excretory system of your body. It's supposed to get rid of toxins. And what we're doing is we're plugging that up.
Putting toxins on it, right?
Shit in there that's plugging up the pores.
That smells good.
And it's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then the same thing is like when our skin is an excretory system. It's an organ. And by pumping all of this oil on water, we know how that works. Oil floats on water, or water is not an oil or not conducive, right? So when we're putting a whole bunch of oil on our skin, which is water-based, that just tells me that there's problems.
Do you mean soap, or do you mean meaning like
shea butter? Like these are oils.
Oh, okay.
A lot of these things that you're putting on your body as lotions are actually oils.
Yeah.
And these oils clog your pores, clog your skin. And to me, that just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like that would be the solution to hydrate your skin. And you've ever noticed that you use like these hydrating lotions and hydrating shampoos, and your shit just gets drier and drier and drier? I don't know. Maybe I'm onto something there.
So Nathan, do you use something different other than deodorant?
I do use deodorant. I use all natural products. So for my soap, I use Dr. Bronner's. I use native deodorant. So I don't use there's like two different kinds. There's like an antiperspirant that blocks the pores. And then there's like the deodorant where it's just basically kind of some antibacterial things and some essential oils so you don't stink.
Right.
I like to wear deodorant. I prefer not to have BO and stuff.
I hear you.
It depends on how often you shower and stuff like that. But when it comes to your personal care products, yeah, absolutely. You want to use natural products because, if you want to get an idea of all the crap in personal care products, go to EWG.org, the Environmental Working Group. So they have like a section where you can plug in your personal care product, and it'll tell you all the chemicals in there. And they're not regulated by the FDA. So like toothpaste, it's not regulated by the FDA because you're not actually like swallowing it, but it goes in your mouth. And anybody that's done drugs knows if you put like a drug in your mouth, it absorbs much faster than if you swallow it.
LSD.
Because you have all those blood vessels right there. Or for other drugs, you put up your nose, right?
Yeah.
Because you have all these blood vessels, it absorbs much faster. But my point is with toothpaste, especially with fluoride toothpaste, fluoride is very anti-mitochondria. You want to avoid it. There's a ton of research that shows populations that use fluoride, their IQ as a whole is like 8 points lower than
Wow.
populations that do not use fluoride. It's a toxin. It's an industrial waste.
Colgate University.
So yeah, so you do not want to be putting, things that contain fluoride in your mouth.
Right.
You don't want to be rubbing lotions on that have chemicals
Titanium
in them.
dioxide. Titanium dioxide is the main ingredient in antiperspirant deodorants. And so that's been shown to do exactly what I was just talking about, is actually clog your lymph nodes. So many people who get that water under here, that's a lymphatic system telling you, I can't get rid of this shit. Lymphatic fluid building up in there is basically trying to move all these toxins out, and it builds up here because it can't get out here. Because you're caking on that deodorant. Oh, I gotta smell good for the ladies, right?
Yeah, a lot of deodorants have aluminum in them too.
Yep. And so for everybody who's just asking about the link for the blue blockers, it is on the primary YouTube channel. It is linked up. The code is Redpill.
Yeah.
That's 10% off, and then it's also posted on Social Redpill if you want that. So that's out there.
I want
Nice.
you guys to know too. One thing I'm kind of surprised Nathan's not doing this is you guys notice I always wore a hat, but now I wear the hat with the red blockers because your UV receptors in your eyelids are actually on your bottom eyelids. So wearing a hat keeps that overhead light from coming down and getting into your eyes, right, Nathan?
Hey, you're a great student. Yeah. The photoreceptors. I don't have an overhead light right now, Jason.
Gotcha. Okay.
But otherwise, I would have a hat on.
And
but-
you'd have a glare. So
I subconsciously knew that.
Yeah, that's a great point. So moving right
Yes.
along. So number 4 is healthy immune cells. So your immune system has all different immune cells, but some of the major immune cells are macrophages. So just for simplicity, we'll talk about 2 types of macrophages: inflammatory and anti-inflammatory. So when you get exposed to a pathogen, when there's something that doesn't belong, the hit squad goes in, it hunts them down, takes them out. That's the inflammatory crew. When they get done, or when you have inflammation, let's say you cut yourself, you break a bone. You want that inflammation, it starts the healing process. But once you've healed, once the threat has been neutralized, then you want the cleanup crew to go in there, which is anti-inflammatory. So one of the things that drives aging is you get an imbalance in these macrophages. You get an abundance of inflammatory ones, and you don't have as many anti-inflammatory. And what that does is that causes an internal source of inflammation. So one of the killers today is runaway inflammation, chronic inflammation. Anytime you have inflammation, your cells go into something that's called cell danger response. They stop making energy. They kind of batten down the hatches. They batten down the fort to hold off the threat. But if you have constant inflammation, that can be a long time without your body making energy or just being at a reduced amount of energy. So when your immune system, what's that?
So how the hell do you cure that? Fasting?
I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
At a high level.
Good. I knew you.
Jason's done it. But here's the point. When this happens, you have an internal source of inflammation. The other thing that happens is you are more prone to getting sick. You're going to get sick more. It's going to have a bigger effect on you. You're not going to bounce back as quick.
Gotcha.
So how do you fix that? You got to fix your microbiome, which is number 5. So the microbiome that we have are the
Little critters.
the genome. The genome that we have the most control of is the microbiome. When we change those populations, we can influence the inflammatory macrophages versus the anti-macrophages.
And this is like a Thibodeauxs and these types of things, right?
What's that?
This is like a Thibodeauxs and these other types of microbes.
I'll tell you the 2 major bacterial populations we want to target, which you can't do with probiotics, which, sorry if there's any functional medicine doctors listening to this that are just pushing probiotics.
Prebiotics?
Doesn't really work for a lot of people.
Okay.
Because I've had a lot of them as clients, and I spent tons and tons of money on probiotics trying to fix my gut because when I was being treated for Lyme, I was on antibiotics for 13 months.
No, that'd kill your gut.
I did everything to fix my gut, including spending a lot of money on very expensive probiotics, which did not work for me. So you got to target Akkermansia. They help to rebuild the lining of your gut. So for number 5, your microbiome, there's 2 parts. You got to fix your gut lining, got to heal leaky gut, and you need to rebalance the population of your microbiome. When you do this, you activate a lot of anti-aging genes.
Yeah.
You fix the balance of the inflammatory and the anti-inflammatory macrophages. You improve your metabolism. Your digestion improves. You extract more nutrients from your food.
Okay, so then a prebiotic?
Nah.
Prebiotic. So the 2 bacteria, I said the one Akkermansia, the other one is bifidobacteria.
Yeah.
Yep.
Prebiotics, they sell prebiotics too. But all you have to do is eat a lot of roughage.
Okay. And that'll
Green
produce
beans.
them naturally.
Raw vegetables, green beans, cabbage,
Raw vegetables.
broccoli. Yep. Which, until you heal leaky gut, you can't really do that.
So is that like if you went and ate like raw spinach, all of a sudden the next day everything's just flowing through you really fast? Even sometimes like the first hour things just...
Yeah, well, not exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, I would.
But
that definitely didn't happen to me. You know,
there's a couple stages, but here's the deal. There's a lot of people out there that think they're lactose intolerant, think they're gluten intolerant, which I used to be, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you're intolerant. It's that you don't have the microbial population to break down those kinds of foods.
Right.
You can rebuild that population. So you can handle lactose. You can handle gluten. And I'm not saying you can go out and eat gluten all the time, because if you do that long enough, you're going to wreck your gut again. But you want to get to a point with your health where if you're hanging out with your friends, if you go to a party and there's some pizza, you can eat some pizza. It's not a big deal. You can eat some junk food and it doesn't wreck you for the next couple of days. But just make sure it's an occasional thing and not all the time, because that's going to put you back where you were before.
So the fix the gut lining and the rebalance the gut, you're literally going to put these things into your system. So you're going to go out there, find these supplements and actually put them into the system, or you're just going to go out there and eat a lot of spinach.
Well, spinach isn't part of it.
Well, that's roughage, right?
But what's that?
Wouldn't that be considered like roughage?
Well, spinach is high in like oxalates and some other stuff.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice, like, you eat spinach, your mouth gets all kind of like chalky?
It's acidic too. It's astringent. Yeah, but so what would I eat then? If I wanted to do this naturally, if I didn't want to go spend $80 at, Sprouts Farmers Market to go buy some high quality, things that I'm going to put in my gut, what do I want to do? Yeah.
So, you got to cut out the junk. Anything that's inflammatory.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
for the short term.
Processed, it's inflammatory.
Processed foods.
Yep.
One of the foods that feeds Akkermansia is apple peels. Other foods are like red skin and dark skin berries, polyphenols.
Interesting.
Okay.
Tell all your secrets. Tell all the secrets.
So that's the first part. The second part is the vegetables I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting.
It so really is.
First you feed the Akkermansia, then you feed the bifidobacteria.
Do you understand? I'm going to have to go back through this whole episode with a pen and paper and take notes and build.
You could just call your brother.
So
I will tell you. Yeah, you could. So like the one thing
I got it from Nathan than you, because
he's like,
at least it'd be right. Not the UV receptors.
Yeah, Josh, I actually sent it to you a couple months
I know you did. I actually have it in my email about the apple peels. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. In the funny thing is there's a thin line between knowing and doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
Yep. Dude, I would just sit there and eat apple peels in the morning and just be like, I can't wait until he tells me I don't have to eat these anymore. after a while, there's a lot of peels you got to eat at the end, and I'm like, holy cow! I'm just drinking water with it because the number one thing I hate when I used to eat apples as a kid is I'd eat the apple, I'd chew it and chew it and chew it until the skin was just left in your mouth, and then I go spit that crap out.
Can I eat it with peanut butter?
No.
No.
Come on, I like peanut butter.
You don't eat the apple, just the skin.
Oh. But can I eat it with peanut butter? No.
What's that?
I like peanut butter.
Well,
I'd
recommend you avoid it for the most part.
Because it's a genetically one of the first genetically modified products, and okay.
Peanuts or GMOs? I didn't even know that.
Absolutely. George Washington Carver in the late 1800s, he crossbred, genetically spliced the pea and a nut.
The crossfeeding is not genetic modification; it's very different.
Well,
but peanuts they're high in omega-6. They're pretty inflammatory for the most part.
Yeah.
Almond butter is a better choice.
I do like the almond butter, but I get the what is it that one dude's almond butter with the white label?
Oh, they make like the fancy peanut butter cups.
Justin's. Yeah, they have the squeeze ones. Justin's, dude, that stuff is so good.
I've had their peanut butter cups. Their peanut butter cups are very good.
Yeah, their almond butter is even better. It's like I use it as a dessert when.
Are they all almond butter cups?
So they have almond butter and then they have peanut butter. But so if you just
I don't think I've had the almond ones. I think I just had the peanut ones.
It's $10 for just like the 8-ouncer.
Yeah, they're not cheap, but
and what I do is like after dinner, like you need that little sweetness, right? And I just take one spoonful and I go around the lining and I just eat that. Oh my god, it's so good. But it makes you want to eat the whole damn thing because it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so dense and full of density. And it's that's the interesting thing is one thing I realized about kind of for people that don't know, I've known Nathan for a few years now, and he's kind of been like, oh, you should do this, you should try this, right? And so when you start trying different types of eating patterns and stuff like that, what you realize about whole foods is especially not necessarily organically grown on a synthetic farm. I mean real foods. There's something different about them. There's something different about the weight of them, how they touch, the density of them, the taste of them, how you digest them naturally, the consumption of them. You get full faster. Not only that is like you feel like we ate like a nice wholesome meal a few days ago. We don't do it every night, but a few days ago. And it was like the plate, I couldn't even finish everything on the plate because I was full because it was so dense of nutrients and your body becomes satiated.
Yep.
Right? Way faster when it knows it's getting the proper foods. And that starts where? In the mouth with saliva because that's a primary receptor for your gut to tell you what kind of food's really coming in.
Yeah. Yesterday for dinner, I had a burger with a portobello mushroom and onions on it. Okay. Onions were raw, lettuce. And then I did no bread. Basically, I did like a burger with no bread. Mm-hmm. And, the portobellos were the same size as the burger. So they were pretty good size. I ate a third of it. And I was just like, I'm full. Yep. I'm almost like, I can't believe you're wasting that. And I'm like, I'm full.
I don't eat leftovers and I'm full.
Yeah. And like, I wake up, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, I'm still a big guy, but when I wake up in the morning, I feel like $1 million. I do. I feel like $1 million bucks.
Your stomach shrank to its normal size. It's no longer expanded.
Yeah. And like Melissa keeps saying, like, I can't believe how much weight you lost. It's not even about that. It's literally I'm losing mass, fat mass. And, like I said, I feel like $1 million bucks. And I kind of feel like I'm like 180. But, then I walk upstairs. That's
the proper mindset to have.
But I walk up the stairs and I'm like, still got that extra weight on me.
Gotta take this backpack off.
Yeah.
But Jason, the other reason you're feeling better is because you shut down a shitload of inflammation that you were dealing with before.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
an incredible change, and it's difficult. Like there's still Doritos in there, and my son will yell at my wife and be like, why are you getting this crap? I don't want to eat it. Dad doesn't want to eat it.
That's the hardest thing, man. is when, and Jeff is probably listening, but when you live in a house with, there's enablers, right? They bring in, you know, there's health food, there's good food, there's wholesome food, and then there's other stuff. Girl Scout cookies, right? And it's like, hey, I need something sweet. A handful of Girl Scout cookies. The next thing you know, you're like, man, I feel really bad. Like, why did I do that? Right? But it's self-control. It's self-discipline. I have always talked about freedom is discipline. And if you don't discipline your own mind, then someone else controls your freedom because someone else is externally disciplining your mind for you.
100%.
And here's the thing is, I once heard a very, very wealthy person tell me, and he was talking directly to me, and this is a time that I was overweight before, and he said, if you can't control what you eat, you'll never control your money. Now think about that. If you can't control your diet, what you eat, your health, and your weight, how the hell can you ever control your money? You don't have the discipline. And it's interesting to think about it that way, but it's true. Is that the first level of discipline that we get in our life is what we put into our body. That is the one ultimate choice that you have, if I'm going to eat that or if I'm not. If I'm going to do that or not. If I'm going to make that decision or not. If I'm going to drink that water or not. If I'm going to go to bed at that time or not. If I'm going to wake up with the sunrise. If I'm going to go out and get saturated by the sun or not. That is my choice, my decision. That's my discipline to do. And that is the ultimate precursor to success in life. Because how many people out there do you know that make millions and millions of dollars and die at 35 because they were unhealthy? We hear about it all the time. Even though they might look healthy, doesn't mean they're inside healthy.
Yep.
Right? So discipline's a big
What's
factor.
What's that saying? What's that saying? Humans are the only ones that will give up their health to make money. Then they spend all their money to regain their health.
That's it.
I think I kind of butchered it, but it's along those lines.
That's pretty much spot on, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So someone asked about parasites in the gut. Like, what about candida? Is that a real thing?
Oh yeah. I suffered from candida. It's candida is a fungal overgrowth.
Okay.
In the intestines.
Does it hurt?
It can, yeah. So it causes inflammation. So for some people, you can be in a lot of pain. So it can increase your pain levels. But it mostly causes fatigue. It causes brain fog. For men, it can cause jock itch. It can cause like white-looking toenails or fingernails. It can cause, in women, it can cause a yeast infection. So it can manifest in different ways. And in fact, there have been people with really bad candida that have been pulled over and given a DUI.
Wow.
Because when it breaks down, it actually excretes. It makes an alcohol in your body.
And that ethanol actually breaks down the gut lining.
Yeah, okay, candida is horrible. So your body is meant to have candida. But the problem is when you get an overgrowth. And there's different bacteria in your gut where you want a few of them, but when you have too many, that's dysbiosis. So that's an overgrowth of bacteria in the gut. And it's kind of like, if you have like a big bar, you want some badass bouncers, especially if it's like a little bit, maybe it's like in a shady part of town. You want some good badass bouncers working at the door, but you don't want too many of them. Right? Because then they start to get in fights with each other and it just becomes a big mess. So that's kind of like in your gut bacteria, when you have a few of some of these bacteria, it's good. But when you get too many, it's a bad thing. And same with candida. And the problem with candida is a lot of the foods in the standard American diet feed candida. And it can kind of almost create food addictions because it can cause you to crave eating ice cream at night, eating, white bread, spaghetti, pasta, all that different stuff.
So it thrives off of sugar.
Thrives off of sugar and refined carbohydrates,
and
which is sugar. So
if
to
I
get rid of candida,
carbs, that bloating I feel after that, is that because I eat carb and all of a sudden I feel like massively large in my intestine, right?
Yeah, well, that could be poor motility.
Okay.
So your vagus nerve connects your brain to your organs, but you have this brain-gut connection.
Yep.
So when you eat, motility moves food through your system. If you have poor motility, if your vagus nerve isn't working well, food will just kind of sit. It ferments. What happens when it ferments? Breaks down, makes gas.
That's interesting because that's the actual vision that I had in my head. And I actually went to an acupuncturist when I was having remember I was having the swallowing problems?
Yeah.
And I went to the acupuncturist, and he goes, "Oh, it's your vagus nerve." And he did some stimulation on it. All those problems went away.
Cool. Yeah.
The swallowing problems. I still eat carbs.
Back to Candida. If you're dealing with Candida, you want to starve it out. You want to cut out all those carbs, sugar, stuff like that. Oregano oil. Very good to help treat Candida. Coconut oil.
Yeah.
Magnesium. So basically, if you have Candida and you just eat like a paleo type diet for like a month or two, take some of these things, for most people, that'll knock it out. There are a few other things you can do, like caprylic acid. Trying to think what else. But if you have goes back to what Josh was saying about discipline. If you have the discipline to cut out these foods, it's pretty easy to get rid of. But if you don't, not so much.
So it's way easier. It's way easier when the stuff's not in your house. You know, one of the things that I stopped doing was, based on talking to you, is eating out. So I'd love to stop for lunch, you know. I mean, I buy lunch every day. I mean, I don't pack a lunch. I don't bring it with me. And, you know, sometimes it was fast food, but typically I'd like to sit down and actually have a nice lunch, you know. And so you're like, stop, because you don't know what kind of oils they're using. You don't know anything they're using. And even though you think you're using something or eating something that's healthy, you don't know, you know, unless they're going to tell you, right? So I stopped doing a lot of those things. And you even said don't use specific oils. You said use specific oils to cook with, right?
Yeah. So to Jason's point, when you eat out, so let's say you hey, I'm being healthy. I'm going to go to one of these like places that have salad options. The names escape me, but I remember when I had a corporate job and, you know, I went through that phase too, was getting salads and go to Whole Foods and get salads. But even at Whole Foods, like their dressings their organic dressings, when you read the label, they've got like organic canola oil in them or organic soy oil. Mm-hmm. Both of which you don't want to eat. I don't care if they are organic.
So what about sunflower?
You know, I think in like limited doses, sunflower is okay.
Because they have that sunflower peanut butter now.
Sunflower. You and your peanut butter, dude. Just get off the peanut butter.
I love the texture. I just love that texture. But okay, so
you're fucking killing me with the peanut butter.
Ask anybody in my house. I fucking eat it by the spoonful. Absolutely. I would there'll be nothing I eat all day but just peanut butter.
What kind of peanut butter are you
I eat
eating?
the Costco, the Kirkland brand.
Is there sugar in it? Because a lot of peanut butter has added sugar. Okay.
No, absolutely less than 1 gram of sugar. It's natural. There's no added sugar, and it's separated peanut butter. So I actually take it. I put it in the Ninja, and I re-separate it, and I put it in the Ninja. I make it all creamy. Then I put it back in, and for some reason, it's just like I crave it. It's not like addictive or anything like that. It's just like my body needs it. That and green olives, iodine.
Oh, those are good, dude. I
love
good.
Black olives, Kalamata.
I like black, green, love them all.
I love black olives. God, they're
seaweed.
So good.
Seaweed, I eat seaweed.
Good. Yeah, olives are it's a good fat, high in omega-3s. Back to the oils real quick though, like canola and soy.
Squirrel.
They're horrible for your gut. Most of them are GMOs, but even if they're not GMOs, even if they're organic, when they get in your body, they become very unstable. They break down, they create inflammation. Canola, I'm not sure about soy, but canola, it's smaller. The molecules are smaller. It can pass through the blood-brain barrier. It gets in the brain, creates inflammation in the brain. And there's research that shows canola oil increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you like to go to these salad places, make sure you're packing your own olive oil or something like that.
It's funny.
When I used to have my corporate job, in my desk, I had a bottle of olive oil and a bottle of vinegar, like red wine vinegar or something like that. So I'd go out, get my own salads, and just put my own on.
Yeah.
Yep. I know you guys. I know your type. I've seen you before. But okay, so let's start here because I know a lot of people are like, okay, what do I do? And I mean, we could probably do a 4-hour episode on this. I know you don't have that time, but I mean, we can just keep on going and going and going because there's so much to cover. We don't want you to get rid of your trade secrets. And people who need to get a hold of Nathan for exactly that, he is linked up in the description. So please do go check him out. For all of you that took part in his 2 weeks to more energy, there's a 90-day challenge. Nathan is on the platform. If you go into the platform, you go to the 90-day challenge. That is Nathan's group. He runs that group. He's there. I think he's collaborating there every week. The 90-day challenge, I think, is a 60-day challenge right now because it's like 60 days left. So if you do want to take part in that, we're going to be announcing the prizes soon. We're going to be doing some things with that. I'm going to jump in on the 60 days because the 90 days was just too long for me. I'm joking. I didn't get started. But Nathan's running that. And so if you guys need to get a hold of him, he is in the group on socialredpill.com. But here's the thing.
Yeah. And Josh, real quick, if you could, put the link for the 2-week challenge.
Oh, cool. You still doing it?
From my website in there. So that's a great place to get started. And a lot of the things in that challenge are actually, they're going to help you with your mitochondrial health. They're going to help you with autophagy because they're going to help you improve your sleep.
Because I was actually going to ask is, let's say I wanted to just get started Monday, because Monday's always the day you want to get started on things, right? What is the what diet? What do I want to start doing immediately? First 3 days, what do I want to do? What do I want to eat? What do I want to do and then wake up? Just kind of, is that okay? Can you give me that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So first thing, you want to go to bed earlier if you're staying up late. You want to get these red glasses that you guys said you have a link there.
Yep.
Get the red glasses because one of the things that impacts everything, all 5 of these things, we've talked about it, is your circadian rhythm. When your circadian rhythm's off, it messes up your mitochondrial health. You're not getting autophagy if you're not sleeping at night.
Mm-hmm.
You're definitely not activating AMPK when your circadian rhythm's messed up. You're messing up your immunity. And you're messing up your microbiome. Every system in your body, every organ, every cell has what's called a CCG, a circadian clock gene in it.
Okay.
So you got your master clock, your supracosmatic nucleus. That sets the time for every other system in your body, your hormones, your organs,
right,
cells. So when you stay up late watching Redpill, and I want you to watch Redpill, make sure you have your blue blocking glasses on. Make sure you're covering up most of your skin because your skin has photoreceptors on it. Okay? So you're going to bed earlier, you're waking up earlier, you're watching the sun rise. No glasses. No contacts.
So when you say go to bed earlier, that's a gray zone. So sun goes down earlier every day towards the winter, later every day towards the summer.
Yeah, I'll make it simple.
Yeah.
You just knocked my microphone over. Hold on.
Sorry.
I'll make it simple. The average human ideally should be getting 8 hours of sleep.
Okay.
Figure out what time you need to go to bed so you can get your 8 hours and wake up for sunrise. Some people are good on 7. Like for me in the summertime, I'm good on 7. In the wintertime, I lean towards 8, 8.5.
I'm kind of the same way.
Here.
So,
yep.
Which you're meant to sleep more in the winter because the nights are longer, the days are shorter.
And so one question in that is, let's say there was a night where I stayed up really, really late, 2 a.m. Does it behoove me to get 6 hours to 8 hours of sleep or to wake up with the sunrise the next day?
It's a good question. If you're doing it once in a while and you just really need the sleep, I've done this before too. Very rarely, but there have been times when something happened, I didn't really get any sleep, get to bed really, really late, and I sleep past sunrise.
Yep.
Might happen 3 times a year for me.
Okay.
If it's an occasional thing, it's not a big deal. But you want to make it your mainstream, your habit, getting up for sunrise.
Okay.
It's called a Zeitgeber. Getting that light signal in your eyeball to set your circadian clock.
Mm-hmm.
So your growth, your body's growth, regeneration of new cells, that's a function of growth.
So
your metabolism, converting food to energy, your hormones are all optimized by the sun.
So it's watching the sun rise and then getting out there between 9 and 11.
Very good. You're listening. Yeah.
Okay. So it's both of those things, not just get out there between 9 and 11. If you have to do one or the other, 9 and 11, obviously, but both of those things. Okay. So if we're going to do this, we're going to do the first 3 days. The things we want to do is get up at the sunrise. Then after that, we want to start. Do I want to eat breakfast? Do I want to skip breakfast? Do I want to fast from dinner to lunchtime? Do I want to do any of that stuff in there?
Yeah. So eat breakfast. I fast 2 days a week. I don't recommend doing an intermittent fast every single day. So a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah.
Because there's such a thing as too much autophagy. And especially like for mothers out there or women that are planning on having children at some point, you need to be careful with these things because there's this thing called transgenerational epigenetics. So if you're doing hardcore fasting all the time, or if you're doing extreme keto diets, that's actually creating a change in your genes that you're passing on to your child.
So basically you had the Great Depression kids. Is what you're talking about. Transgenerational epigenetics is that the Great Depression had such a impact on the genealogy of certain kids and the people who were having kids during those times that their guts, they ate less, they survived off of less, they didn't need as much nutrition.
Exactly what happened. They did this really interesting experiment. Well, it's a little messed up, but they were electrocuting rats and exposing them to the smell of cherries. The rats had babies. They exposed so the rats, obviously, they didn't like getting electrocuted. They had extreme anxiety. Then the rats, just from the smell of cherries, the rats got anxiety because they associated it with being electrocuted.
Right. And that was
rats had babies.
Passed on. It was hereditary.
The rats had babies. For the baby rats, just the smell of cherries gave them extreme anxiety.
Yep. Genetic memory.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it makes sense that genetic memory would be integrated in some way, shape, or form, whether we can access it or not. Okay, so let's get back.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose focus. I know you got to get to sleep. Joking. But we got waking up at the sunrise, then getting some sun, 10, 15 minutes of sun between 9 and 11. I try to do that, make it a habit. I love doing that. I just go out there and sit out.
It's a great habit. It's a great habit.
Feet into the ground with no socks and shoes on, and I just I love it. It's like my thing. My thing. I love it. So there's that. Then you can eat breakfast. Now, go on about the diet aspect, because I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of people are wondering, because that's one of the things that's going to have a big impact as well.
Well, it depends on where you live.
Okay.
So for me personally, my typical breakfast is some duck eggs. My sister has a bunch of ducks. She keeps me stocked up in farm fresh duck eggs.
Ooh.
So I'm doing my duck eggs. Sometimes I do them with some smoked salmon, sometimes with some bacon. So I do a pretty high protein, high fat breakfast.
Okay.
In the summertime, when berries are in season, I'll eat a lot of berries. I love blueberries. Sometimes I cheat. I buy them out of season. But your diet, you kind of want it to follow the seasons.
Okay.
And it really depends on your goals. But let's say just for the average person out there that wants to have peak performance and maintain their edge, let's say they have to think really well for their job or whatever, having a higher protein, somewhat high fat, low carb breakfast is going to keep you satiated up until lunch. It's going to help you maintain your focus. And if you're trying to lose weight, it's going to help you burn some fat as well.
Biggest meal of the day.
Ideally, breakfast should be your biggest meal.
Wow.
Here's another key. You want to eat when the sun is out.
Important.
Eat very easy this time of year, or easier, I should say. In the wintertime, not so much. I break the rule quite often in the wintertime, where it gets dark at 4:30, 5 at night.
So portion size. We obviously all are different sized human beings. Portion size. I've always gone by the rule of thumb, 2 fists. You should never have more, because your stomach is the size of your fist, right? Is that the rule of thumb? Your stomach's the size of your fist, which means that, I have like one fist of vegetables, carnivorous, those types of things, and then one protein type of fat fist. So that's kind of how I always looked at portion sizes, unless it's a barbecue, then I'm like 5 fists, right? But I never finished that. So what's ideally...
So how many fists of peanut butter do you eat a day?
Half. About a half a fist.
Half a fist.
Yeah. I will, dude. I swear I will. It's bad. I gotta probably stop. I'm always buying peanut butter at Costco. She's like, "Why are you buying more peanut butter?" I'm like, "Because I love it." Maybe I'm deficient in something. My body's trying to tell me something.
So for portion size, you can use the fist method, but ideally you want to eat until you're satiated, or if you have really good discipline, learn to stop right before you become satiated.
Scarcity.
And I eat slower. That's another thing. I take my time, but Josh, I will tell you, my portions are not that big.
Eat slower, chew more.
Well, here's another thing. You want to be in a relaxed state when you're eating your food. So your nervous system, you've got two sides to it. Sympathetic, that's fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, they're eating their lunch, they're on the computer, they're looking at Facebook, maybe they're driving their car, but they're in a stress state. When you're in a stress state, your blood flow goes to your extremities.
Yeah.
So you want to relax yourself. You want to activate the parasympathetic response, which is rest and digest. So you get more blood flow to your gut that can absorb those nutrients and transport it to the cells.
Here's the thing is, we have a problem on this planet when this is hard to follow the instructions that nature provided to us naturally. Right? Like, this was like natural stuff that we evolved to do. And now, 20,000 years later, we're like, okay, can you start over from point A? Because I'm a little behind here. Right? Like, it's so weird how this is. It's like foreign. It's like, really, we have to do all that, but we used to do it naturally. That it used to be just a natural sequence, part of our evolution and growth.
Joshua, that's such a good point. Just look at the wild animals where you live.
Mm-hmm.
Don't include ducks, because where I live, they have signs everywhere like "Don't feed the ducks," because so many people feed the ducks bread. The ducks are getting fat and sick like Americans. Yeah. But animals that have to find their own food, they're not overweight, they don't have cancer, they don't have diabetes. They don't have any cookbooks.
Yep.
They don't have to ask anyone, what should I be eating? They eat what nature provides them, what grows locally.
That's right.
Right? So let that be your guide. Which a lot of people get pissed when I say this because they want a specific answer. But I want you to understand and learn for yourself how to feed yourself.
I wish there was like a chart that I could do, seasonal chart, spring, summer, fall, winter, for Colorado, a geographic seasonal chart for Colorado, and it shows me what I can eat when I can't eat.
Go to a farmer's market, talk to the farmers. Hey, what's in season now? What's going to be in season next month?
So if I actually do their farmer share, where I just get my stuff from them, they're going to give me what they grow. Why wouldn't I?
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Join a CSA.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect, right?
But no, Joshua, if you want that education, go to a farmer's market and talk to the farmers. They'll talk your ear off about what's in season when.
Interesting.
And you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, man, it's so crazy. Okay, so we got the sun, we got portion control of the food, we got the biggest meal of the day is breakfast or lunch. Lunch then just smaller, and your meal should get smaller throughout the day. So dinner should be like a snack, very, very small, and it should be before sundown.
Should be before sundown.
Now, how do you feel like people who drink protein shakes before bed?
I don't really know anyone that does that. I wouldn't recommend it personally.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that like a big thing to do a protein shake before going to bed?
Muscles and stuff. Oh yeah, man. Down a protein shake before bed.
that's a different demographic.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're like the 1% of like the big beefy weightlifter guy, then it's probably not a whole lot of those people watching the show.
Right. There's a few of them. But okay, so if let's just say that's
And
all
if there are, they're not going to take advice from a little scrawny guy like me.
You're not scrawny. You got you're jacked. Okay, so we got sun up, sun down. Watch the sun. Someone asked, "Do we watch the sunset? Does that make a difference?"
Yes, bonus for the sunset. So the sunrise, that turns everything on. The sunset, that starts to shut everything down.
Huh.
So throughout the day, you've got all these photoreceptors in your eyes. They can interpret the intensity of these different colors. So when you're watching the sunrise, you're getting an increase in the blue. You've got these reds, these yellows, these oranges. Your photoreceptors, they can interpret them.
Gotcha.
Your circadian rhythm is slightly less than 24 hours. That's why you want to make sure you're getting these sun breaks throughout the day. That's why every day you want to reset it. So it's 100% on track by watching the sunrise.
Gotcha.
Or getting sun in your eyes as early as possible. Yeah, then you watch the sun set. That tells your brain it's time to shut things down. The blue light goes away. In the absence of blue light, the brain releases melatonin. Melatonin is one of the hormones that syncs your circadian rhythm, gets you into a deep sleep. It gets you into autophagy.
Gotcha. And so if we just did those few things.
So here's the next thing. At night, you want to minimize your blue light exposure. And I pretty much everything we've talked about, with the exception of what to eat for breakfast or how big to eat for breakfast, is covered in that 2-week course. I have a whole part on the circadian rhythm, on what to do at night. You want to get rid of your energy efficient light bulbs. You want to get rid of your LED bulbs, your fluorescent light bulbs. Because if you take a spectrometer, you look at them, most of that light emitted from those bulbs is blue light. So when you're in your house at night, for your monitors, or for your computers, there's software you can get that reduces the red light. So I have Iris on this computer I'm talking to you guys on. My monitors look kind of reddish right now because almost all the blue light has been shut down.
Wow.
So is it red light or blue light at nighttime that we're worried about?
Red light at night is good.
Okay.
Blue light is bad.
Blue light is bad.
These block out blue.
Blue light's good in the morning, bad at night.
Blue light is good from the sun. Blue light's good throughout the day. So yeah, blue light in the morning from your LED light bulb is not good because that has a color temperature. So at sunrise, the color temperature is like 1800 Kelvin. If you have like a cold LED light, or if you look at your iPhone or your smartphone first thing in the morning, that has a color temperature of 6000. That's blue light. Tells your brain it's noon.
Ah, interesting.
Messes up your circadian rhythm. Same with at night.
So that's why I go from morning waking up to immediately the nap time.
Yeah, because your body doesn't know what the hell time it is because it's so thrown out of whack. So at night, I'm breaking one of my rules right now. I've got a lamp on over here, so I don't look like a shaded.
Like you don't look like me back here like this, where everything.
I don't look like I'm in witness protection.
Yeah.
But for me, this is very rare. When I'm up at night reading a book, I use an infrared light bulb. They sell them at pet stores for lizards.
Yeah, I know.
So it just emits red light, and it's enough light I can read, but it doesn't mess up my melatonin, my circadian rhythm.
All right. So if we just doing those things, you're going to be way ahead, of these people that are just hooked on the latest fad diet, and that's all they're doing, and they're gym rats. Because trust me, I lived that life for a long time. I looked super fit and healthy for many years of my life, but I was a complete mess on the inside. Right.
Because I was breaking all these different rules. I was eating healthy. I was working out. I was doing the mainstream things. I even took a couple of good supplements. But I still got in huge trouble because I wasn't taking care of my mitochondrial health.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting into autophagy. Let's see. I wasn't doing anything to activate longevity genes. I did not have healthy immune cells. I got an autoimmune disease. I had a leaky gut. I had dysbiosis. I broke the 5 rules I talked about tonight, even though for the most part, I ate healthy and I worked out.
Right. So I walked into a convenience store the other day, and a guy walks up behind me, and he's a big dude, right? Probably about the same height as me, but just wide, big old arms, big old legs. And he's like, "How much you squat?" I'm like, "Nothing anymore." You know?
He just said that to a random stranger.
He did. And he goes, "I got the shit that'll make you squat whatever you want to squat."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah?" He's like, "It's not steroids, I promise you."
Well, yeah.
It was like HGH.
Human
Intravenous
growth hormone.
HGH, human growth hormone, and this other stuff that started with a P. He's like, "You got some in the car if you want it." I'm like, "No, dude, I'm good, thanks." But
Dude. Oh, finish your story. Then
no, that was it. I was like, no, and he kept on going. But like, maybe I should. I mean, HGH sounds like some good shit right about now.
Yeah, tell you what. Go to bed earlier. You'll make your own HGH.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you have access to a sauna?
I do.
So do a resistant training workout, then hit the sauna. You can increase your HGH by like 500 or 600%.
Infrared or natural with eucalyptus? What kind of what should I do? Is the infrared sauna or the
Natural with eucalyptus? What?
Yeah, so basically a steam sauna with eucalyptus.
Oh. Yeah, no, hot sauna. So the most of research on so sauna is great for mitochondria. Mm-hmm. Most of the research is just on the traditional hot sauna. So now they have like full spectrum infrared and far infrared and all these.
So you're talking like hot stone sauna then?
Hot stone sauna, but if you don't have access to that, the other ones are good too.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I do the kind of like the steam sauna with the eucalyptus.
Well, my one concern with a steam sauna is most of them just use municipal water. Mm-hmm. So anything that's in that water gets vaporized.
Okay.
That chlorine, if there's fluoride.
So then there's the infrared one.
Go use that one.
And then there's also I got a hot tub here, so I use the hot tub a lot. I haven't used it all this winter, but so yeah, so I can use the infrared one. Okay, good.
Is your hot tub inside or outside?
Outside.
So during the winter, that's a great hack.
Yep.
So to be in like up to your waist, so get the cold from the outside. There's a name for that, but that basically creates an energy flow in your body.
Interesting.
From the hot to cold, you're kind of making your body into a big battery when you do that. So in the wintertime, that's an awesome hack too, because you probably noticed this. It can be super cold out. You can just be like up to your belly.
Yep.
In the hot tub, and you're still warm.
Yep. 100%.
But
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You don't need to get like your black market HGH from Mr. Squat, dude. Go to bed earlier, lift some weights, and hit the sauna.
Perfect.
You'll make a shitload of HGH.
So everybody who's wanting to get started on this Monday like I am, I'm going to start the 60 days of the 90-day Monday. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start going back all the way through Nathan's videos.
Start at the beginning. Start with the 2-week challenge. That's the foundation for everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's this cryo stuff? Does that work, like cryotherapy?
Well, so I introduce in the 2 weeks, actually in the 90-day challenge, I work you up to full-blown cold thermogenesis, which is full body submersion. Cryotherapy, the chambers go down to like minus 180 or something. You're only going in there for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to do it. It's fun. It feels good. It's not as cold as you think. I mean, it's cold, but it's super dry.
Right.
It feels great. If you have, one time I drove from New York down to DC. I was going down to see some friends, and there was this place that opened up that had a cryo chamber. So I went. I was actually kind of a little sore from the drive, kind of stiff. I did that, knocked it all away.
And so one of the benefits
of full body submersion is superior to cryo, because cryo is on the surface. Water conducts heat, which sometimes heat conducts in, sometimes it conducts out, 24 times faster than air does. So you're getting much more benefits when you put your whole body in the cold water.
So starting this type of program and wanting to lose weight, because you want to lose weight fast, because the faster you can get this weight off, the easier it is for your body to start healing itself and get rid of this.
Well, you don't necessarily You don't necessarily want to lose it fast.
Okay.
You want to lose it steadily, and you want to be able to maintain that. A lot of people that lose weight fast gain it back just as fast.
Right.
Because they get themselves to do something extreme that's not sustainable. They lose the weight. They stop doing that. They go back to their old habits. Guess what happens?
Boom. Exactly.
You got to change your lifestyle. You got to change the way you live your life.
So,
like getting better sleep, syncing your circadian rhythm.
But the cold therapy is an added benefit, because what the cold therapy is for people out there is evolutionary. Is we have fat to keep us warm and to produce energy. And there's two different types of fat out there. Well, three different types, but two different fats that we're talking about right here is white adipose and brown adipose. And how you get to that brown adipose is by cold exposure. Is it transmutes that white adipose white adipose fat into brown adipose, which basically becomes a thermogenic effect and burns that fat to produce heat within your body. Is that correct?
Yeah. So your mitochondria, they can make energy, they can make heat.
Yep, and the brown adipose is actually mitochondria.
It's brown because it's very mitochondrial dense. It's metabolically active fat. Yeah, very good. So for example, when babies are born, they're all pudgy.
Yes.
Babies are born with a bunch of brown fat. Then they're coddled their entire lives. Their mothers never let them get cold.
Big fat.
Unless it's my kid. And we grow up in a heated house. When we go someplace in the wintertime, we're in a heated car, loaded on with these big, thick, goose fat down jackets.
Yep.
Then we get to be a teenager. We have no more brown fat. We're just pudgy white fat.
Right.
So this is how you get it back. But yeah, evolutionary, if you go back far enough, we had to survive winters without heated homes, without heated cars. Maybe we were lucky we had an animal pelt.
Is this why my wife likes sleeping with the house just freezing cold, the window open in the middle of the winter, and if I turn the heat up to 72, I get yelled at?
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh my
she
God,
says she sleeps better when it's cold.
Of course. When melatonin's released in your body, it actually drops your body temperature.
Interesting. This is crazy, man.
I mean, Josh, that's a basic sleep hack. Making your room cooler.
Yeah, I know.
Listen to your wife, dude. Listen to your wife.
I know. I just like being so warm. So I was on a ship for 6 years, and you got to understand, even in the equator when it's 120 degrees out, I slept with a wool blanket.
Well, I do like having blankets on me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got both windows open in my room right now, getting it nice and cold.
Yeah. I know. I gotta just take the plunge, man. Just gotta take the plunge. Gotta take it. Gotta do it. All right.
Start with the face dunks.
I'm gonna do the challenge. I'm gonna do it, and so I'm gonna jump in. I have to. There's no choice. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm doing it. So I expect all of you out there, if you haven't done it, go sign up for Nathan's program. It's linked up in the primary YouTube channel. It's also on the social Redpill. It's linked up there. You can find it there. Please go join it. Do it. It's it's a whole bunch of videos that you send out daily or weekly, and they're just different tasks.
It's 2 weeks. There's 7 courses, and you're going to work up to 10, maybe 12 minutes a day of new habits. If you make these habits, just in the 2 weeks, I've been hearing from people in the first week, like, oh my God, my energy's already better. My stress is way down. But you make it through 2 weeks, your energy is going to be much better. You make that a permanent part of your life, wow. It will change your life.
Well,
100%.
I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping.
Just doing the stuff in this 2 weeks.
Awesome. Well,
you got to keep on doing it. You can't just do it for 2 weeks and stop. You got to make it a part. Yeah, you got to make it your new habits.
You have to make it a discipline. That's like martial arts, is you have to make it a discipline. This is why you go from white belt to black belt, and that's just the beginning. That's to make sure that you're disciplined enough to learn martial arts, which happens after you get your black belt. And so that's the beauty of it, is you have to be disciplined in order to go through this process to become healthy. Even though this is something that evolutionary we happen to us naturally through natural progression, but we've forgotten our old ways and we have to get back there. And that's what Nathan's providing to us, is exactly how to do this. With his 2-week program, we get the 90-day challenge on the platform. Please go join that group if you have not already, as well as go find the link right there. It's on the social Redpill. It's just linked up below. Join that 2-week challenge. I'm going to do it. I have to. I have no choice. I got to the point where I'm going, okay, I'm done. I have to do something. So this is
man.
Glad Nathan's on tonight. This is great. We're going to talk. We went over 26 minutes. I'm okay with that. No problem. We're going to head in the Fringe After Dark. Guys, for everybody who's joining us on Fringe After Dark, for the Master Patrons, and anybody who signs up through Venmo, you'll see it scrolling there. It's also linked up below, $5.99 to Venmo at Redpill Project. If you're going to join us for Fringe After Dark, give me about 15 minutes. So it won't be exactly at 10:30, but about 15 minutes. For some of you, I know that's too late, but I need a little bit of break. And then we're going to try to do an hour so I can get to bed before midnight. We'll see.
All right. Joshua, great seeing you. Jason.
Nathan, see you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday. You guys be well. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Good night. Bye.